Good evening, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of the Sheila Exchange. Today I have with me a special guest, Dr. Hartini Zainudin, who has agreed to come on board. She's a child activist, works currently as a consultant also for various government and UN organizations. She is very well known as the co-founder of Yayasan Chowkit and served as the head of advocacy and funding as well as the outreach program in Chowkit. She's also the vice president of Voice for the Children, a local NGO that does advocacy work, law and policy reforms and training on children's issues. And the Asia School of Business fundraising consultants. She plays that role as well. And is as well UNICEF partnership and philanthropic consultant. Wow, so many credentials to her name.
Hi, Sheila.
Hartini. Hi, Hartini. She also was a member of the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development's National Advisory Council on the Welfare and Protection of Children and is a member of a number of national task forces. So many going on there, so much. She's dedicated her life basically to helping children and really, really honored that she could be with me today. Hartini, thank you. Thank you for being on this Friday with us.
Yes.
My pleasure. So before you devoted your life to helping children, what did you actually want to do with your life? Or what did you want to be?
I actually wanted to be a teacher. That's actually been my dream since I was 6 years old, yeah. I actually wanted to be a teacher because I was one of those naughty kids that always got into trouble. And so there were two sets of teachers I could see, one who actually tried to talk to me and one who just wanted to punish me for whatever the thing was. And punishing me, it was just not going to work. So yeah, so I rebelled even more. And I just thought, you know what, I think I know enough about teachers, I think, from just having been one of those kids who always got into trouble, that I decided that I could do a better job. I didn't become a teacher, but that was the plan. Yeah.
That was the plan. It might interest you to know that I was a teacher once upon a time in a past life. I was, yeah, I did. I didn't want to be a teacher, but both my parents were teachers, and it happened that, it was in the 80s, and my father said, go and do your DPET. I'm like, I don't want to be a teacher. No, do your DPET and keep it, because teachers automatically get a job. They get posted. I'm not going to support you. And so that was that for a good decade plus. Yeah. Oh, by the way, what is the PhD for?
Monitoring and evaluation. It's teaching. So I went to Teachers College at Cambridge. So my degrees are all in teaching. My master's was in teaching. My doctorate was in teaching. And then I went into nonprofit, and I said, I don't want to be a teacher. I can't teach. I don't have.
So you went at this whole thing, a PhD, right, for teaching, and then you never became a teacher. That's so interesting. So how did that direction change then? I mean, was it one single pivotal moment that made you say, you know what, I just got to go and do this? Or was it like a process?
It was a pivotal moment. So basically, I had to do my internship at teaching diploma practice in one of the inner city schools in New York at the time. So I was in Washington Heights. This is a long time ago. And I walked into the classroom the first day, and I couldn't get the kids to sit down. And so I actually went back to my supervisor, and I said, I don't want to go back. And she said, well, you have two choices. You either go back or you fail. So I had to go back the next day, and I just had to rack my brains. And there was this kid in the classroom who was sleeping. The first day I went in, the second day I went in. And so I asked the students why, and I found out that, anyway, that was a personal story, that she hadn't eaten in a few days. Her father had died. Her mother was on food stamps, but using the food stamps to buy drugs. And all these kids were inner city school kids. And I sort of realized then on that second day, when I got the kids in a circle and to start journaling, I realized that, it's very difficult to teach children when they don't have enough food on the table, or they don't have, parents who can supervise or take care of them. And young kids were on their own, losing one or both parents. And there was just so much stuff going on that it was very difficult for kids to focus. And so I decided that, it was impossible to teach English literature in King Lear to middle school kids when they didn't have enough food on the table. So I wanted to be a little more I just felt my calling was to try to make sure that they actually had a stable life the way I did when I was their age, and I wanted to do more of that kind of thing. So I sort of moved out of that and went into nonprofit. And because I had volunteered and worked for nonprofits and had seen so many of these kids outside of my degree, outside of my course as well, that I knew that that was my calling and that was what I wanted to do. But I never planned to come home to Malaysia. So that was just, I think, the universe telling me that this was where I was supposed to do it. But yeah, that's how.
You're like that person we watch in the movies, the one who went to the inner city school with all the that story that becomes a huge. They should make a story about your life here. I wonder who would play you, right? That'd be so interesting to know.
Yeah, but I honestly think that mine is not an original story. I think so many of us, especially if you look at the kids and the young people from Teach for Malaysia or Teach for America and all these kids who have, dreams of going to McKinsey and stuff, and they end up, doing this 2-year contract to teach kids in remote areas and stuff. And you think, yeah, I'm not that original. I just, I'm not. But yeah, so that was my story. I think, it's just, yeah. So I didn't really teach. Even though I said I was going to do it. Yeah.
So you came back to Malaysia and then you co-founded Yayasan Chowkit. Why Yayasan Chowkit? Why not Yayasan Kampung Baru or Yayasan Medan, Tuanku or something,
And I actually, because when we first started, it was me and the couple that was actually running the daycare center for the government. And they lived in Chowkit. And we actually called it Rumah Nur Salam because, we were working with the Ministry of Women and they were our partners. And at that time it was Datuk Sharizat, who's now Tan Sri Sharizat. And, they had everything was Nur, right? Nur this, Nur that. And I wanted to build, a space sanctuary for children who had so much going on, very, very similar to the kids in New York. And so Rumah Nur Salam was the house of peace and light. Which was sanctuary, right? It's another word for sanctuary. So I actually called it that. But then, the chairman, Tan Sri Razali Ismail, was saying, look, Chowkit has such a bad connotation to this. And we're talking 2005, that he said, we need to take back the name. We need to take back the streets. We need to take back, the identity. Children shouldn't be ashamed of coming from Chowkit, etc. So we decided to call it Yayasan Chowkit because we formed a foundation, broke away from the organization that was housing us, and became Yayasan Chowkit because we wanted to take back that name, and we wanted to show a positive sort of spin to the space, right, to the place. So it's Yayasan Chowkit.
So what did Yayasan Chowkit start off to do at that time, and how has its role evolved, or has it changed and added on? Or?
So we started out sort of trying to identifying the gaps that the government daycare center was doing, right? So we had this government daycare center. We partnered with the Ministry of Women and the Social Welfare Department, KL, and we sort of identified the gaps where, because of resources and lack of funding, etc., we couldn't fulfill and protect the children, right? Kids were still on the streets, they didn't have a place to eat. So we started out with food, health, education, and shelter, just to make sure that the kids were in a safe space. They could come and do their homework, they could eat so they wouldn't be hungry. They couldn't go home after 8 p.m. because we would told parents, if you don't pick up your kids by 8 p.m., you can't pick them up till the next morning. So it started out like that, making sure they were getting inoculated. We were working with Mercy Malaysia, getting dentists, getting volunteer doctors to take a look at children. So that's really how it started. But then now if you look at the services, I'm actually surprised and shocked at the work that my colleagues at Yayasan Chowkit do. We've got more than 21, 22 kind of services, from helping kids in school get into boarding school, to birth certificates, to all sorts of stuff, adoption, to looking at trafficking, alternative to detention work. So a lot of advocacy work where we can also sort of build a data repository to sort of gather the facts to be able to advocate better for children. So yeah, we do a little bit more now, a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. I do read your social media posts and all them. Some
I'm
of them
such a drama queen, right? I know.
No la, you're not la. I mean, you need a place to sort of express stuff. I can imagine reading your posts and even talking to you now and again. I think some days must be really, really hard for you. You know, the
Yeah.
stories that you hear, the
Yeah.
people that come to you, they've got nothing. They're at the end of themselves. And, you know, particularly for me, what really moves me is the stories of the babies, right? Babies with no food, babies abandoned, babies that no one, mothers have come to the end of themselves and they can't, you know, so really tell me about those stories. I mean, what are some of the have been the darkest, lowest moments for you and some of the happiest moments for you?
I think this week was really hard, and I think, you know, it was hard. This week was really, really hard because we had the one case of a single mother in Kelantan who had been asking for help because she had fallen behind on her rent. Actually, she had fallen behind for 13 months because she lost a job during the pandemic. And we talked about her. She was living in Kelantan. I actually spoke about this a couple of days ago, but I didn't help her because, you know what, I get pleas for help every day, and when you're in this work that we do, you sort of, I'm not making excuses, but you sort of, the stories start falling into a pattern, and it's the same stories going over again, except I forgot that this is someone's story and it matters to that one person. And I said, no, I didn't want to help her. Anyway, she came back, she called me 2 days ago, 3 days ago, um, because she had been driven out of her house, right? Because she couldn't pay her rent with her two children, who was 4 months old and 3 years old. And they had been driven out in the middle of the night. So they rested, or they was trying to sleep at the side of the pondok by the roadside. And the baby got attacked by monkeys. And so she sent me photos of this baby's face. She was just so desperate. And you know, and she said she had tried to get help. No one would help her. And so she said, please. And so, you know, I couldn't, and I felt so guilty. So rallied the troop. We managed to raise the money to pay for, actually pay for the whole thing. And you know, thank God she's Malaysian, so the government hospital, I didn't think she got charged a lot. But that was not the end of the story. So she didn't know that we could cover the other half of the rent because we only paid half it first. So as soon as the baby was out of an ICU, she took off and ran. Nobody could find her. And she texted me later to say she was on her way to another state and she got the letter to leave, and she just left because she said, nobody cares about me. They only care about me when my baby gets bitten by a monkey. And no one wanted to help. And she said she was done. But that wasn't the injustice. I think the injustice was, okay, I don't want to get into too much details, but basically there was a formal report made about her, right? Because obviously, you know, I put it on social media, etc. So everybody started calling and saying, oh, we want to help this person. Are you sure there's a story? And there was a formal report made to say that she was lying, that there was no baby bitten by monkeys, there were all these things. And then we find out that the officer had actually interviewed the wrong person, went to the wrong house, just got everything wrong. And the injustice would have continued, and she would have been victimized again hadn't we corrected the officer's report and said, you went to the wrong house. You interviewed the wrong person, the wrong IC, wrong child, wrong everything. She's at the hospital. She's not at home, and you went to the wrong home. Anyway, so that was one that just killed me, because it was one case of many, many cases I know where the victims are vilified over and over again. The system vilifies them over and over again. And because nobody would help, this woman was so desperate, she actually just left the state, her home, and just left. Yes, we paid the landlord so he would stop chasing her, but that was, to me, it was one. You know, that the fact that this pandemic has highlighted the issues of very, very poor, marginalized, really marginalized. And we don't mean marginalized because you're discriminated against because of the color, race, but because they just simply haven't, the system doesn't allow enough support for single mothers. And like I said, the system's so broken. That was one. Then the other one was, of course, I went to court, and that was yesterday. And the 15-year-old, and what he said to me, I mean, he hadn't seen me in a while. So when we sat down waiting for the judge, he just let loose. and was saying, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? He's 15. I'm going to disappear. I mean something. I've helped this child, this other friend, and this other friend. And if it wasn't for me, I saved them, and I mean something. So my life has to change, and I want more for my life. And you to the heart rate, I just thought, what have we done? What have we done? It's not enough to, provide guardianship. It's not enough to make sure, we get till he's 18 and then we release him. Release him with what? What skills? What life? And I think what the two cases highlighted for me this week was I think it's humbling. So there is no pat on the shoulder. You don't save anybody. You sort of identify who they are and the needs, and then what are you going to do with that, right? How do you help walk with them by their side to make sure they don't fall, to make sure you support them so that they can feel confident enough, they feel they realize that they do matter and that they can do something by themselves. So how we need to walk with these people, with this child, with this single mother, to make sure they're okay, and then they can go and do their things. But we need to provide those opportunities for them, because no one starts out in life saying, I want to be a poor single mother who runs away from my home. No one starts out and says, I was born in this country and maybe I shouldn't have been born. How is this my fault, right? And you hear this and you just think, what on earth? What on earth? So this week was a very good example, I think, on highlighting the needs of children and mothers and the marginalized communities who are very, very poor, and in remote areas, in urban areas and whatever. Just realizing that, you know what, we have no right to pat ourselves on the back because we haven't done enough as a society, and we haven't done enough as a child activist, as a person who says she cares about the community. I haven't done enough, and that we need to sort of collaborate and look at different ways in which we can do a better job at supporting our fellow human beings, and support children who are supposed to be, say, are the inheritors of this earth, that that we have, they're our pride and joy in our future. We don't treat them very well. So that's my two stories.
Yeah, but there's one thing I cannot agree upon in what you said, is that you haven't done enough. I think you have done as much as you can within the ability of anybody to do, because you stretch yourself, you give so much, and you're doing every little thing you do is far more than anything any one of us could ever hope to do, because you've been in this, you know it. And I think, Hartini, the thing is, it's the heart and the passion for it. It has become your life's passion. So how do you cope with days like this, like yesterday and like today, and these stories? How do you keep yourself going on?
I had donuts yesterday.
You had donuts yesterday. Okay.
I have like this really horrible coping mechanism, which is eating. So I do that. I had donuts. I journal, so I have my journal book. I read, but I'm supposed to be on my back because I hurt my knees, right? So it's very hard for me to sit still. So I think it's like the universe and God's way of saying, like, sit still and figure out, and now use your mind and stop just going, and really plan and strategize. So I'm hoping, I have 4 more weeks, maybe less, to, do my virtual meetings and all that kind of stuff, but sort of sit down and spend my time looking at other ways to address the issue and try to figure out, sort of map out different stakeholders to work with me on the different issues. So I am blessed. Even I think if you fall down or you see these heart-aching, horrible cases, it is lessons, I think, that I have to learn in order to say, you know what, stop. It's not working. We need to look at something another way. So it's all blessings. It's all good, I think.
And do you have like some
cupcakes? Yeah, and chocolates.
Donuts and cupcakes. So anyone listening out there, I think she'll welcome the donuts and cupcakes. You can send us some too. Any happy stories? Maybe
happy stories. Oh my God, I forgot. Oh my God, there's so many happy stories. I'm amazed at the children. There was a presentation that the homeschooling kids and their teacher did with me. Presentation done about a month ago. These kids are all non-Malaysian children, refugees, stateless migrants, working on a project. I don't even know the actual term of the innovation project that they were doing, because they've been shortlisted for some competition. The way they put everything together was just incredible, that they thought of the aspect on gender-based violence, how to address the issue while working on this innovation project. And the fact that they all had no tablets, nobody had a computer, nobody had a tablet. They were using their phones to do a Google Meet with me, and it kept going off. And finally, the teacher had to do it. And I just thought, resilience, creativity, the sheer focus on wanting to get something done, the presentation skills, the communication skill. I was just so humbled. I mean, the youngest was 13, yeah. And these kids are like 15, 16, 14 years. Just incredible presentation. And I thought, you know what? This is what keeps me going. This is the kind of stuff that keeps me going, that I know these kids are going to be fine. And my job then, therefore, is to support them. But there's so many happy stories. A kid got her glasses. She's an incredible artist. Another kid, advocated with me on statelessness, because he and his 4 brothers and sisters are stateless themselves, but he was so articulate and getting above and less emotional than I am about talking about the issue, that we have more advocates. We're being interviewed, Shamala and I from Voice of the Children are being interviewed on Monday by these private school international kids on child marriage. So you know what, we're doing something right? So yeah, there's so many good things. And like I said, I am not a narcissist. I don't like bad stories. It is not all depressing. There are so many beacons of light, small, big, medium size beacons of light, about the fact that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I actually was going to ask my mother, it's like, down the road, if you don't want to do anything with this house, can we turn it into a home? She's going to kill me. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to aspire to. There's so much that inspires me, and it's not a one-person show. So I know that, and my friends remind me all the time. They're like, you're not alone, right? You're not alone, right? Even though you feel like it. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I know I'm not alone.
And then you also have the children in your home. You're not one of those people that talk about single mothers without knowing what they're going through as well. Circumstances might be different, but you know what it's like to bring up children on your own. So tell me about that. Tell me about motherhood.
Motherhood. Motherhood was not a natural process, as I think everybody knows. So I adopted. There was so many trials and error. I remember giving my son, who was then 2 years old, frozen grapes, thinking that, I read somewhere that, if you had your teeth and I got it all wrong, right? Teething happens at 6 months. Do I know this? No, I didn't read the Dr. Spock book, because, I sort of just jumped into it. So I gave him frozen grapes, which I didn't cut up. So when it was time for him to poo, like the entire grape came out. It was just horrible stories. Like, I didn't know what to feed him. I gave him cheese. I think he likes cheese. I'm not sure till now. I think I didn't, so there's so many of these kind of stories, scary stories. My daughter has had asthma as a child. And the first time I heard her coughing in the womb, I've never heard children with asthma. And so I had to call my mother, and, and she took the baby home at the time, because I was just like, what the hell? I don't know. So, motherhood was not easy. There were times when you can't afford certain things, right? You can't afford the music classes. You can't afford, the extracurricular. You can't afford a lot of things, because, you have given everything away, right? Even my kids. So, I've had to learn and refocus on the fact that I always say I'm an activist first, then a mother. Now I've sort of flipped it. And so I'm like a mother who's an activist, which was a whole journey in itself. So I have teenagers now. Nobody told me about teenagers. They're very different.
Yeah, very different. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm trying to learn and be a little more open-minded and patient with all the talking back and the correcting me and knowing more than me or knowing less than me. But so I'm learning. Motherhood is motherhood. I think we all have our stories, but I think there are commonalities among mothers, single or not. about working with teenagers. So for me, that's the part.
No, you're very
Oh,
right.
this little alien.
The best feedback, the most sort of austere feedback you're going to get is from your teenagers. If you want to become a better person, just listen to your teenagers tell you about yourself.
Oh my God.
Right?
They nag at me. They nag at me. Keep your feet up. Don't move. Don't do this. No. Stop this. I'm like, when did the children become the adults? And when was I reduced to being a child again, right?
It's going to keep going on, trust me.
Oh, but yeah, you get the sweetest things like, I will take care of you when you're old and I'll buy a hospital bed and you can stay in my bedroom. I'm like, what about your wife, my son? He's like, my wife can sleep in the guest room. I'm like, oh.
Oh gosh, no, not a good recipe, that one for marriage, for mother-in-law, daughter-in-law interactions.
No.
So has motherhood made you a better activist, or has being an activist made you a better mother? Both.
I think being a mother has made me a better person. It's kept me grounded, and a better activist, because I know there are times to stop, breathe, walk away, turn the phone off. My kids still say turn the phone off. I'm not very good at it. And sort of refocus on priorities. They've forced me, gently and ungently, to reprioritize what's important. So yeah, and it's about having fun too. I mean, I went into this work because I like children, and children most of the time like me. But it's a lot more than that. Right? It's the responsibility and the understanding and trying to negotiate the boundaries. And it's about mutual respect and mutual communication, which I'm still not very good at. So yeah, no, I'm still learning, which is nice. It's humbling. I mean, I haven't stopped learning. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. Still trying to figure it out.
So you said you had a sort of a lot of experience working on the ground with children, with your experience in the US, and then your son Shavkit. You're also now consultant to various organizations at a national and global level now, so able to sort of have a big picture, perspective on things. So what roles do you play at these levels now?
Fundraising and resource mobilization. So I work for the Malaysian Red Crescent as a consultant, and I do some other work on advocacy, mostly on child protection, etc., child services. You know what? There are so many similarities and similar threads running across issues that affect children here in Malaysia, regional and globally. The needs are many. I'm always forced to think from the ground up in terms of perspective on what the needs are, but also looking at the bigger picture to see how to look at systems change. So, I was lucky enough to be, the first Malaysian Acumen Fellow, right? So part of the first cohort. And the great thing about it is meeting this whole bunch of, 22 fellows, and also having access to courses. And I've just love the fact that I get to do study groups with so many young people. And yeah, actually, I think I'm the oldest. I think I'm the oldest in the group, but learning from them and learning about system changes and different ways people are thinking about the same issues, understanding it's not that it is quite common, but looking at the ways in which it's innovative and what other countries have done. So, it's a constant learning process, and it's a lot of negotiation and a lot of listening, which I'm very bad at. I'm very good at listening to children. I'm not very good at listening to adults. I always think I know better. So it's sort of a slap in the face, sort of gently as well. It's more about listening and listening to me, myself as well. And if I don't do that, the universe has a way of slapping you down, like what they're doing now, and saying, stop. I think, which is what happened when I fell. So I don't know. I think it's helped me in so many ways globally to look at what's out there, but also regionally. And I have these three different perspectives, and it's pretty cool. I am very, very lucky. Yeah. Very, very lucky. I get to do what I love.
And I think the children are very lucky to have you as well. So in as much as you have helped shape policy and impact, organizations, the government at the Malaysian level, as well as other countries, how has being an advocate for children, an activist for children, how has that shaped you as a person? Would you have been a different person if you had just say maybe gone into teaching, become principal of, you know, a huge private school where you could earn lots of money?
Yeah, it's I think working as an activist grounded me. Coming back to Malaysia helped me find out who I am. It has sort of defined my identity. I think I was lost for a long time. My life would have been completely different if I hadn't done the work. I think if there's any saving, it's the children and working with children that saved me. I think I'm much nicer than I used to be. Much nicer. I think I'm a more authentic person, because I think I've finally found my calling, and I'm really lucky. I was older, but I found my calling. I love what I do. Yeah, I think I'm a good person. I'm a better person for it. Definitely, definitely. Yeah.
So one final question, Hartini. How can we as a society support the work you do with children? What would you want more of from the community?
I think most of the community should read up more about the issues that children face, at least be their advocate. We need to protect children much better. We have to stop differentiating between a child of this race, this color, this creed, this nationality, and just look at children as children to be protected unequivocally. I think we need to do more to support one another, support the NGOs that work not just on children's issues, but any issue. Do your research, find out, learn more. Volunteer. Volunteer is a way of life in America. Volunteerism here is still not a way of life. We could do so much better. It's not a special course you take, you know, it's something that you should do, you know, because that's what human beings do. Yeah, that's really what I think. And I think be a little more compassionate and empathetic. I think Malaysians as a whole are very, very generous, but we're very short-term focused. I think we need to really see and learn more about issues that touch the heart. It doesn't have to be children, it could be an environment, it could be anything. But I think having a passion outside of work, outside of your family, outside of community is something that you need to look at, and to show that, and there's so many people struggling, especially after the pandemic, so many, that we need to do a lot more and be a little kinder, I think. You know, as much as I think most Malaysians are good, some are not. And there's so much xenophobia and nonsense going on. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me on the Sheila Exchange today. It's been lovely talking to you. And I always, every time I read your social media posts, I resonate and I send you out love and empathy. And I think what an amazing woman, because there's so few of us who could do what you're doing, to dedicate our entire lives, you know, with the ups and downs, and to just, you talked about being resilient. I think you're a fine example to these children about resilience.
That's the highest compliment you could pay. Thank you.
And you deserve it. Thank you so much for being with
you.
us.
Thank you
have my pleasure. You've been listening to me, Sheila Singham, talk to child activist and advocate, Dr. Hartini Zainudin, on the Sheila Exchange. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Hartini.
Bye.
Bye.